Hello, everybody, and welcome to the third episode of A Man Who Truly Delivers show. The telephone number here is 615-560-9299. I've just been talking with Brian Wing. Brian is with Valmont Site Pro, and he's on the show with us today. And we don't know what we might get into, but welcome, Brian, and welcome to the show. And I appreciate you joining us and dying with me here on this Good Friday.
Stork, thank you, sir, for having me on your show. First, very fortunate, very happy to be on the show. This is fun. It's a Good Friday. I hope those who have worked, I hope you've had some time to enjoy some of the day. For those of us who have the day off, I have had the day off of work today, so today's been a wonderful day. The weather is perfect. Good Friday, and happy to be on your show, Stork. This is going to be fun.
Yeah, and we're glad to have you. So, Brian, let's start with you. You were just talking. So, were you born and raised in Arkansas, or where do you come in from?
Yes, sir. That is correct. Born and raised in the city of North Little Rock. There's Little Rock is separated by the Arkansas River between there's North Little Rock and Little Rock, and the big river right in the middle. And we were just talking about how, when you grow up in a state like Arkansas where there's no professional sports teams, if you're a sports fan, then your college team becomes your sole fan base and so we definitely had great stories of growing up shooting for the Hogs and rooting for the Hogs year round, but it's a great place. But we now live in the Dallas area in the state of Texas, and have loved calling Texas home. It's been a wonderful place to be. We plan to live here many years.
Uh, Brian, how'd you get in wireless?
Southwestern Bell Wireless, for those who remember the old Southwestern Bell territory, is one of the original RBOCs, regional bell operating companies. There was a 5-state region, and so in 1996, believe it or not, Stork, I was still in college. In 1996, I was a junior at the University of Arkansas Little Rock, and Southwestern Bell needed some full-time positions as they were starting a wireless network.
Wow.
So this was their. I was part of the original wireless crew that started.
So you was in on the ground level. You was in on the ground level. So you was like employee 67, employee 68, or whatever.
Yeah, and I wish I knew the number, but it was an exciting time. I remember PCS.
Yes. 1900.
We were launching the PCS portion of the territory. And so in Little Rock, Arkansas, there was actually a network operations center, or NOC, in the city of Little Rock, and it covered the state of Arkansas and Oklahoma, and what a great opportunity to get into wireless while I was going to school. So I was working full time, going to school full time, and then from that experience, I was constantly on a day-to-day basis talking to the field techs or the wireless techs and switch techs. And so I became interested in that position.
But what did you come on? Stop right there, Brian. Stop right there.
Yes.
What did you come on as? What was your?
I came on originally. My first role was a customer service rep. I worked in a call center.
So you did inbound. Was you catching
Yes.
inbound like 611 inbound? Like, I can't use my phone. I don't like this.
Exactly.
My bill's too
You hit it on the
high.
nail.
And you
So 8 hours a day, 5 days a week,
and when I
I was
get you
answering
and you
calls.
cost me all this business and my phone wouldn't work. Man, I bet.
Oh
Yeah.
man, and half the calls that I received were calls from Southwestern Bell customers who were unhappy with their bill. They dropped a call. Their call. Yeah, this is back when they were adding features.
Yep.
Everybody's going to laugh at this who don't remember, but people would call in to say, "Hey, Brian, I need to add detailed billing as a feature. I need to add call waiting. I need to add caller ID."
It was a
three-way
feature.
calling.
It was
Those
a
are
feature.
features that
Yep.
cost $2 or $3 a month, and for 19, I got to share this. This is funny. $19 a month, you got 10 minutes of talk time. If you went over your 10 minutes, it was 60 cents a minute. So, but then that was my first role, and then I worked in the NOC the longest, and then after that, I became a field tech in the field, and all of this was having to ask a lot of questions about how this works and how this works. What's a T1? How many DSOs are in a T1? And what is the purpose of an amplifier inside of a radio cabinet? How do you use this?
But you learn Brian.
What you sweep a line with what? What is that? What is that test equipment to sweep a line with? And anyway, all these questions and asking questions, I actually spent my days off with field techs while they went to go troubleshoot outages, in the Little Rock area, and Pine Bluff, Arkansas, Russellville, Conway. It didn't matter. I would ask, can I go with you to visit some of these sites that you're troubleshooting and testing and working at, whether it was in the middle of the night or on the weekends, early morning. I would just spend my days off doing that, and I gained a lot of knowledge and appreciation of that role. And then when a position came up, thankfully, I was a field tech, and I loved that position. It was a great role to just, and so now I went from customer service to an operations role. And then anyway, over the years, I've worked for most of the 24 years I've been in telecommunications. 16 of those were working for a carrier, whether it was Southwest Remote Wireless, which became Singular. Then I worked for T-Mobile about 11 years. But great times working for the carrier.
But I was going to go back to that. Every day when you were talking about, and once again, everybody out there, if you're just joining us on the A Man Who Truly Delivers, the telephone number to call in we're just sitting here chatting about Brian and how he just got into wireless. But the call-in number, as you can see on the screen, is 615-560-9299. You can join us right now. But Brian, going back to that, and you learning all about wireless and just the simplicity of it, knowing, after you started to get into the shelter or into where the brains of the operation were, and you're running PCS, so you were running 10 up and 10 down. So, you didn't have a whole lot to play with, but you're doing voice activity. Yep. You're doing voice activity across that. And what's neat is just like you said, every day was different. And a lot of days, just to bring a site up, there was nothing more fun than when they were, you knew the day that they were going to turn up a site. So they have finally, reached construction end, and they're ready to, burn it in, get the T1s going, as they used to say. They used to say, burn it in, get it really going well, and then do the drive testing and all that. Those were such fun days, and then they would tune it. And get it to talk to the other, antennas and the down tilts and mechanical tilts and all the different variations. People don't realize a lot of that stuff has been taken care of, but that was like, I was talking to somebody the other day about, I don't know who it was, Brian, but I was like, you got the Motorola phone out, you was function 13 zeros, recall, and you got into the back of it, you put the SID in. System identification number, and then you get there, and then no, don't do that, skip that, type in the telephone number, press send, and away you went. And, that Motorola DPC 550, it would program and fire right up and use in business, make a test call, and here, Mr. and Miss Customer, and then like over the air activation. What a cool thing, and But people don't realize that, I came from analog, Brian, so what I love about the old days is, I was an indirect manager and even sold car phones, but when you would get a reel of numbers, it was cool because, you knew you were getting them from Lockheed Martin. So, you would have a list, like a printed sheet with you with blank telephone numbers that were hot. All you had to do was assign it to an account, and you could turn the telephone on. And so, when you sold phones, Mr. Ms., whoever, Smith, do you want consecutive numbers? Okay, I've got two here. You'll be 5601 and your husband will be 5602. And, you would program the phones and sell them and execute the agreement and all that. But it was so.
Oh man, and you were Mr. Important, Mrs. Important. If you had 0000, or you was just so fun to brag and say, I was at the beginning of the NPA NXX. Remember the term?
Yes.
You always used to say NPA.
Still
NXX.
use it. Still use it.
Before people used to say what their phone number is, and you would just say 7 digits. But of course nowadays everybody shares their phone number in 10 digits. But I think of fun. You hit it on so many levels about how what it's done for me is to help me appreciate where we are today. When you mentioned turning up a new cell site, when a new cell site gets turned up for new service, there is so much done remotely without having to go to that site. When I was turning up sites in the late 90s or early 2000s, every single thing we did required a phone call to shut down Alpha 2. And then you would shut down Alpha 2 and do some this. Okay, I'm ready to call another phone call to the switch. I'm ready to turn up Alpha 2. Can you shut down Gamma 4? Okay, Gamma 4's shut down. Do the work. Let me call back and have them. And then guess what? If you're turning up a new site, that means there's no coverage in some cases back then, because some of these areas had holes of no coverage. So guess what? Sometimes we had to do. We had to drive down the street, maybe a few miles even, to get coverage so that we could make a phone call to the switch so that we could. And it's just nowadays we've got so much coverage.
Yeah.
So that when a new site is turned up, like the city of Arlington, I love to share this. The city of Arlington, Texas, it's a huge suburb of Dallas, over 400,000 people. There are so many cell towers. I think there's one on every square block. And so the coverage from most carriers is going to be solid. But back in the day, yeah, I mean, there's, the city like that made us, the taller the tower, the better, right? They would try to make the tower cover a county. One tower would cover an entire county, but then, of course, you break that up into all the towers that cover the proper cells and that thing. But it's been fun to watch the industry grow to where we are today, to where we literally can talk and text and look at a website or watch a YouTube video or whatever, all at the same time. Even at the same time, we're talking on a voice call, we're texting, we could watch some kind of a stream of video, all at the same time. It's just amazing what we have, and so it's allowed us to be more efficient, and hopefully we can all take advantage of that extra time, and then use it to, when we're off work, we can be truly there with our families and friends and loved ones, and be together. And there's an old saying that I love to share: it's "Be here now." And it's always stuck with me. Whatever you're doing right now, Stork Montgomery, I'm getting to talk with the one and only Stork Montgomery, and I love this. This is fun. But right now, I'm talking to Stork. That's what I'm doing. But whatever we're doing tomorrow or the next day, we need to be in that moment, be here now. And I think all this new technology, all these advancements that our industry, we work in a thriving, progressing industry that's just making milestones that sometimes we don't stop and appreciate just how amazing it is. But it's allowed us to really, truly have moments where we can truly be there, and as long as we appreciate it and take advantage of those times when we are with our friends, loved ones, relatives, that kind of thing. So it's fun.
Well, and everybody always asks, how do you guys make money? I think they think that this wireless business is nothing but a big a big, huge party, but it's actually not. But we do have a big time. I will say that we've been known to have a big time in the game of wireless, and there's been several extravagant celebrations throughout the year. Some that thank God that there it was no video cameras in the early days of 2000 on your phone. But
it is true that you hit it, man. Because if we're all together or we're all talking, that half the people, maybe who knows what the percentage of them. There's many of these people, many of these good, hardworking men and women in the industry. Chances are, some of those individuals worked last night. Some of those individuals maybe were up all night handling an outage, handling an upgrade, doing things, because we have this thing in the industry called the maintenance window, and everybody's got their different window, but typically it's between midnight and 6. And I love to just share this, that there's so much that happens during the maintenance window that while most people are sleeping, that we don't realize how much is getting done. And thank goodness for those people that are working between midnight and 6. And the reason they do that, of course, for those that may not know, that is when the traffic is the least. Mm-hmm. And so it's less impactful to customers because a funny story, though, is, I used to work for Cricket.
Oh, wow. You worked for the Green Couch. You worked for the Green Couch, man. I always wanted one of those green couches.
Cricket, but Cricket had to their maintenance window used to be 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. But because of the how many people truly were still on their phones at 10:30, 11:30, and so on.
Yeah, you had a particular demographic.
We had so many people on the phones at 11 p.m.
Yeah, you had a particular demographic there on Cricket.
Yes, no. If you did not have if you had bad credit.
Yep.
If you had, they're prepaid. And so they would appeal to people that were maybe had some credit issues.
Yeah.
Or you know what? You did not have to sign a contract. So if you were below the age of 18, you could get a cell phone and without having to go to your legal guardian or parent. So you could have, back in the day, I'm not sure if this is the way now, and so I'm don't want to speak out of turn for their company, but you could, if you're 14 years old, you can go in and buy a Cricket phone back in the day. And
but Brian, what would be any different than you were 14 or you were you're 10 or 11 or whatever, and you go to your mom and dad and, hey, I want a number, I want my own telephone number in my room, and so to have the phone company physically come out and pull another line off and pull it into your home, that would have been a big deal. And, of course, there would have been a monthly increase on mom and dad's telephone bill to have another number piped in. But I knew several people that had two landline numbers going into their home. Man, that was uptown if you had two landline numbers coming in. I mean, it may sound corny.
Oh, man.
It may sound corny.
You wanted the world to know if you had two lines, like, whoa, this guy, what are they doing over there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway,
how many of us on the call remember the days where if you ran through the kitchen too fast, and mom was on the phone, you might get clotheslined because that cord could choke you, right? You were running so as a kid, we learned when you're running through the kitchen, you better slow down, or you might get clotheslined.
So you were with Southwestern Bell, and then you went to Cricket?
Southwestern Bell, then I was part of the Cingular when Southwestern Bell Wireless became part of Cingular. I was part of the Cingular. I was an employee of that company, and then transitioned over to Cricket as a field tech, and many nights where I would work the entire week, all night long, and then got a good wife that was supportive of me, or is supportive of me with the back in the day. We all had to be quiet during the day because Dad was trying to sleep because he was up all night and he's got to work tonight. And so that was that's part of what you were saying is the challenges for families, for individuals. It's not an easy thing to work all night, and then sometimes people just assume, hey, he's home all day, so he's available to help. It's like, no, we gotta sleep, or he's gonna, and it required a lot of driving.
Yep.
Driving to this site, this tower, and I would have drive test routes.
Yep.
Where I would drive, for 6 to 8 hours as part of my shift, and there was always overtime. There was always needs to help here and help there, and so it always ended up being 50, 55 hours a week easily. And but Cricket, and then T-Mobile. My first position at T-Mobile was a switch tech. So I found myself going, I've had the opportunity to be a knob tech, a field tech, and a switch tech. And that kind of helped round the many of the positions at least within a carrier, as being out in the field or being inside of a switch environment. And that helped. That was, boy, you messed up in the switch, you could, instead of messing up one cell site. If you're a field tech and you do something wrong, or you got a cell site, singular cell site that's out of service. But when you're in the switch and you're doing work or maintenance and you mess up, you could knock out an OC12 or an OC3, and those are that OC3 is 3 DS3s, and OC12 is 12 DS3s. And 28, this was back in the copper days, and so that could mean dozens of cell sites off the air, or multiple counties worth of. So that was a fun experience, but also stressful at times. And but yeah, boy, I tell you, some of the funny stories I like to.
Go ahead, please.
The rat.
Yeah, please start. But tell us a funny story. I'm ready to listen.
Well, I like to share that. I used to say, hey, if I could write a book, and I bet 2 or 3 people would have bought it, maybe 5 or 6 people would have bought it, but 101 Ways to Drop a Call by Brian Wing. And I just thought, I found if people knew what reasons their calls truly dropped were for, their jaw would drop. And here's what we found. There was times where we would look at drop call reports, and every time at 3:37 p.m. or 3:45 p.m., sometime between 3:30 and 4 o'clock p.m. every day, there was this cell site that was always dropping calls. And so we would go, but when would we go out and troubleshoot? We go out and troubleshoot in the morning, or around lunchtime, or in the nighttime. Well, we never found anything wrong. Well, finally we said, you know what? The calls are always dropping in right between 3:30 and 4 o'clock p.m. So let's go exactly at that time. Well, there was a train that passed through that town every day between 3:30 and 4 o'clock p.m. That train caused so much vibration that it rattled some things and caused the drop calls. And then another, the reason that happened all over, the rats and the mice love the radio cabinets because they're warm. If they can get into those shelters and cabinets, everybody that in this industry knows you have to seal up the radio cabinets and the shelters for bees, wasps, hornets, snakes, all that stuff. And every time a rat or a mouse would chew on a cable, at that moment when that rat's chewing on it, it is causing drop calls. And then that rat gets a little, maybe they're just chewing it out of nervous habit, or they're hungry, or whatever the reason. When they stop chewing, the drops go away. And I can't tell you how many times we have had to put rat poison in, seal up the cabinets, replace Cat5 wire. Nowadays, of course, fiber is dominant over copper, but black widows, they love those black. I've bet I've killed 300 black widows over the years.
Wow!
And because they're always in the same spot. Every cabinet looks the same, and the black widows, they love the same spot. So I would extend this little thing with a mirror on it and look up underneath, and I could see a little black widow hiding and I would kill it. I'm like, I'm not going to sit there at 3 a.m. with my laptop sitting on the concrete pad until I know that black widow's dead, because they're smart. For those people on the call on your show that know black widows, they are very intelligent spiders. And but yeah, first thing I did when I pull up to the site, I'd kill the black widow and then do my thing.
Wow. So, and other creatures and everything. I'm sure you found some reptiles of several sorts in a cabinet or two. I mean, especially in the South, they talk about it. I mean, there's usually rattlesnakes. I mean, I was talking to John Hester the other day, who was on the show 2 weeks ago, and he was talking about rattlesnakes. And I mean, of course, I think that's what a lot of people don't understand. I was saying that a lot of people think all we do when we do get together, we do have a big time. But the time in between is where the work is done. A lot of phone calls, a lot of relationships, a lot of things go on. A lot of updating in these online computer systems. Yeah, when we all get together for a golf match, or when our outing comes, so to speak, and each wireless association has their little outing, whether it be Alabama Wireless Golf, Tennessee Wireless Golf, Texas Wireless Golf, any of those events that happen. Yeah, it is one of those moments when it is kind of let the hair down. I mean, we've been known to, but at the same time, our business is it's such a relationship building business, and I'm sure it is going to be very vibrant when all of us get back together. Brian, are you coming to South Summit?
At this point, it's very likely, it's very possible. We happen to have a daughter that's getting married 1 week after that, so we're figuring out that, and then another daughter that's Speaking of Kentucky, that that Army base that's just south of Louisville.
Yes, Fort Knox.
Our other daughter will be. There's a graduation she's got. That she's a junior at Baylor in Waco, Texas, but she's part of the Army ROTC program there, and she's graduating from a camp that she's going to this summer. They're making a big deal out of it, and we want to be there to support her. So but because it's near there, it'd be great if we could kill two birds with one stone and do both. But man, you hit it on the nail about when we go to these events. When we're at these events, we're having a good time, but chances are, most of us, as soon as that event is over, we've got so many missed calls and emails and work to do so it's a demanding industry, but thankfully all the Arkansas, Oklahoma Wireless, Texas, all these great wireless associations where we can all band together and like you said, form and develop and continue those relationships. And some of these relationships go back 20, 30 years. There's people that, when I started in the mid '90s, it's impressive that many of these people, there's a gentleman by the name of Spencer Gambrill. He and I were knock techs together for Southwestern Bell in the mid '90s. Well, he's still with AT&T today, and he's working on 25 plus years with AT&T, and so he's been there from Southwestern Bell to Singular to AT&T, and it's that's more than half my lifetime. I'm 45 years old.
Well, and
even though I look 29, I look 29 years old, but believe it or not, everybody, I am 45 years old.
Well, and another thing is you got to really lean on a lot of people. I mean, we all say I did this or I did that. Truly, there's no I in this game. We really it takes so many different people for us to pull all this off, and it's our relationships. I mean, this morning, so you was talking about it. So I'm trying to work a site right now, and I had to make a telephone call and ask some questions about, well, do you think this would work, or do you think that would work? And it's a tight site, but you were talking about working for Valmont and your business as Site Pro and everything. So what is it? What is one of the products like right now, Brian, that you're? I mean, what is one of the big things that people are in high demand of? And I mean, if you had truckloads of them, you couldn't have enough of them.
Yes, and I work for Valmont, and Valmont has several companies within or entities that provide us with this strength that is allows us to respond and support those customers at a super level. So you got Valmont Larson concealment. There's so many needs where a company needs to hide or conceal their antennas or tower. We've got Valmont Site Pro One, which is the consumables and components piece of Valmont.
Okay.
And then there's several nationwide warehouses across the country that are within 1 to 2 days of transit time to get that material where they need to be. And that right there, when your question about the needs, that right now what's very in high demand is the antenna mounts.
Okay.
And that is something that, because of the 5G and the constant modifications or new equipment that is going up on these towers, many of these antennas, for those that may not know, and I realize in the industry we take for granted, we assume everybody knows, but there may not be people that know that these antennas, they're not 5-10 pounds. Some of our customers, there's a lot of wireless internet service providers and other customers and different areas that do require lightweight antennas, and we have mounts and material to support those as well. But on the heavier side, there's some of these antennas that are over 100 pounds.
Yes.
And you've got several of these antennas that are 100 pounds each, up 150, 200 feet plus in the air. Well, those, you need robust, strong, heavy-duty mounts to properly support that antenna with the wind loading. And we've got this engineering team within Valmont that is super. It's high standards, high quality, and as I mentioned, the multiple warehouses where we stock this equipment from, so that when customers need it, they can get it typically same day. Typically, when customers order, by far most of the orders are shipped the same day, and that is a standard that's common practice at Valmont, where when a customer needs an order, we get this all the time where somebody's like, "Hey, I need a quote at 9 o'clock in the morning. You have it in stock?" Yes. And then by 1 o'clock, it's on a truck heading to their office, and it arrives the next day or maybe 2 days after, and these are several hundred pounds of steel on a trailer coming to the customers, but that's the type of industry we have. They expect that, and we're equipped to properly support that kind of a demand.
Well, and you just said it, and what a lot of people don't understand is, so if you are a PM or you are an implementation manager running a project, you're going to do a flip. So you do it in clusters. So probably so let's say you're going to flip Nashville. Well, if it's any of the big three today that are living, I mean, you're probably talking 600 sites plus, to do the greater Middle Tennessee area when we start talking about that many towers. So if you've got an alpha, beta, gamma, a 3-sided tower, and you're trying to use a specific RRU mount for a remote radio head unit, and then, it's going to be a big order, but, it's just unbelievable how much equipment is involved just in what you're doing.
And the accuracy of the order, we make it easy. The ease of ordering is there, but the accuracy, so that order, when it arrives, because we know there's a tower crew that's going to have a crane.
Yep.
There's going to be those cranes are expensive, or the crews are expensive. The there's so much expense, and they've got approval to only maybe work on this tower during the day at this particular time, or they only have access at night, and this is the one night of the week where they can access the site. So it's very crucial that we, as a team, get that order correct, and they get exactly what they need. And if one component, one item is left off, it does and can disrupt things. So we've got a great team. Speaking of team, we've from engineering to inside sales, the team that processes quotes and orders, to our warehouses, those people, the good men and women that are working in the warehouses, running the forklifts, picking and packing the orders, our facility managers. It's an army of support that is it's truly, like you said, teamwork, and really to just put it to where it's affecting all of us. It benefits all of us. All of us in this industry are making a difference, so that what it ends up doing is it allows families and individuals and businesses to connect.
Yep.
And if you're a business, you're able to get your work done more efficiently, make a higher profit, or be more successful. And if you're a family or individual, you can connect better. It's what kind of keeps me going, and that have that passion and enthusiasm for what I'm doing. Isn't it a wonderful thing if a mother and a husband and wife have a baby, they're at the hospital, just picture the situation, whatever we can just imagine. But let's say grandma and grandpa can't be in that delivery room because they live out of state.
Yep.
Well, there's FaceTime, there's a video calls, and all this thing that's even in the last 2 years has just rapidly come out of nowhere, that it's easy for us to take it for granted. But I'm just one person of thousands and thousands in this industry that's what we're all doing. Whether you're in project management or construction or customer service or retail or sales, every one of us is making a difference in this wireless telecom industry. It's exciting, and it's bettering our lives, as long as we I think as long as we just always pinch ourselves and appreciate that, right?
Well, and I started chasing video and been involved in video for over the last 20 years, but been an avid broadcaster since 2016. But we, and I know you did too, Brian, when we were just dabbling with the phone, you were thinking to yourself, boy, I sure would like for this thing to be able to shoot a picture, or, as a cell tech, you're out there in the field. So what did you do? So you went out and you did a site inspection to see what's been going on at the site. So you had a checklist of things, and how's the road, and you took pictures of the road. Well, if you had a digital camera, and when they first came out, it was great. But years ago, in the first days before the digital camera, what did you have? You had a 35 millimeter camera. Yeah. So you would send that off and then get that back. And then I can remember when they were dropping pallets of paper at Crown Castle International. I'm not talking about a little bit of paper. I'm talking about pallets of paper to do site candidate information packages, put that in a thing, and then when we do a lease, we need
filing cabinets. The filing cabinets. It just is the library, large room and space, everything required to have. Then you had to file everything, and it was just the amount of square footage of office space to hold all those files and papers. And now
they called them the golden. They called it the golden docks. That's the room where all the golden docks are.
When I first got a BlackBerry phone, we nicknamed it the Crackberry, but back then it was the BlackBerry was so addictive because people just wait. You mean that I can get my email on my phone?
Yeah,
and I can actually get an email delivered to my phone, and But yeah, they
I think they got used to the keyboard and just the way it felt in their hand because it was one of those phones that the consumer, after they got to using it, they were very unhappy to lose that form factor. It was like, I'll never forget Jack Neri, who sold the Sony 3000 CDMA flip phone. Jack was a great salesman. He's from Cleveland, Ohio. But I'll never forget, he always talked about the reason why Motorola was so successful was they made a great consumer product that worked on an analog circuit, and the chip and everything was just so. But it was also the form factor of the phone. It was durable. No, the batteries were not the best in the world unless you were fortunate enough to find a nickel metal hydride or a lithium. But all in all, it was just they made a lot of money on that clamshell based phone, and it was just one thing that, man, it was a hit, just like no different than Motorola made a lick off the Nextel of the push to talk. I mean, when you were competing against Easymer in the beginning, it was a little bit intimidating, but then knowing that you were selling a duplex service, a complete. And I mean, I used to when I was selling. Now later on, when you got in the tower business, you become Jesus because you love everybody. But when you were selling, I used to wear Nextel out as an Easymer carrier because you knew everybody in the restaurant that had one of these things, because what are they doing? They're talking on the phone like, and everybody can hear your conversation,
right, no privacy, and the push to talk. That was amazing, and it still is, with many industry in the air conditioning repairmen, plumbers, still such an important feature, and still used even today.
So what do you all?
Yeah,
what do you?
that,
So you were selling. You were talking about a lot of components being shipped out. So is that just strictly mounts of all types, or are people replacing a lot of sector frames or T arms? What or is it just little mounts for the RRUs? I know that now they're starting to list that mount. I'm doing an overlay for a wireless carrier right now, and they're adding a couple of antennas, and there's actually an RRU mount that goes back behind it to hold these radios.
Perfect. And you hit it exactly. It's all the above. Sector frames that do have the RRU built right there with a convenient bus bar.
Oh, okay.
Right on the frame.
Okay.
Very convenient, very common, but there's all sorts of various sector frames, booms. Many people call them booms.
Okay.
Sector frames, booms, but for the guy towers or cell supporters, and then when so many monopoles are out there, and we've got a wide range of monopole mounts in different face widths, different scenarios. Sometimes people only need 2 antenna pipes per sector. Maybe they only need 6.
Right.
Pipes but then there's sometimes where most often where it's the traditional 4 antennas per frame, and so they're getting all 12, and then 2 RRUs per frame, and then there's the situations where, hey, we need a little beefier. We need 2 7/8 antenna pipes. We need 3.5 inch, and so there's all sorts of different. When I say that, I mean the outside diameter. But then so many modifications going on to where, hey, I've got an existing. I'm already there. I'm already on air.
Yeah.
But in order for us to use this new antenna that's to support 5G, for example, I need to beef up this tower. I need something that'll be something like a platform reinforcement kit, or a sector frame stabilizer kit, or a stiff arm. And there's a wide range of options there and these are things that are commonly stocked, and we ship out during multiple times a day in all of our warehouses. So those are the things that are most common. But boy, what's great is if you're a tower crew and you're installing these mounts, what do you also need? Oh, a helmet, a harness, a lanyard, a sling, a carabiner, a spreader bar. Oh, I need some load rope. I need an RF monitor. What's beautiful about what we've got at Site Pro One, Valmont Site Pro One, there's a separate climbing gear catalog and safety that's 200 pages. And I like to say it's pretty much about everything a tower climber needs. So the same crews that are picking up their material can conveniently get their climbing gear from the same company that's providing them the mounts and the tower components and the consumables. So they might need ground lugs and bus bars and tape, the small stuff, the lightweight stuff, the consumables, but they might also need the heavy ice bridge kits and the antenna mounts but whatever the case, it's convenient to have that from one location so that you don't have to get that from multiple sources. That purchasing equipment, if you're a procurement person, if you're a project manager, if you're a construction manager, whatever the role, purchasing equipment can be an area that they don't always look forward to. So we like to just take that burden off of them and make it easy so that you just send over your list. Right? We always just say, just send us your list, share what you got, and we'll share that quote with you and get you what you need so you can be on your way.
How much is small cell now? And I guess in the beginning when we start talking about, first it was 2009, it was called DAS, and then somewhere along the way, a DAS is totally different from a small cell because a DAS system is that's something you use for an indoor venue, but then we thought a DAS system is something we should use for an outdoor. Now that most of the DAS systems have been flipped to basically a full-blown small cell, but that's that whole side of it. When you start to think about whether it's a rooftop or a different size pole, and I'm sure you all maybe, and this isn't a financial call, but I'm sure you all, supply the pieces and parts that you do to another carrier, but you also, like, to another company, you basically are their wholesaler. So, if I'm Sears and Roebuck, well, actually, it's Valmont you're actually getting them from. Sears just puts their sticker on it and sends it out. It's actually a Valmont product. Is there some of that going on in your all's industry?
Definitely. We are certainly a manufacturer of small cell poles, and we've got many options. There's many customers that will just buy the pole itself, but there are customers that say, "Hey, I'd like it to be decorative. I'd like it to match."
Now, will that switch over? Like if I was a customer,
I'd like it to be this color, and so there's a wide range of options and needs that the customer has. And the unique thing about small cell, as we know, small cell is unique where every city has its own unique requirements. So here in the Dallas area, in the beautiful state of Texas, God's country, right? This is the state of Texas, right? I'm kidding, but I got to throw that in there, right? But half the people are annoyed when they hear that, but there's some people listening to your show here going, "Oh yeah, that's right." So, but in the state of Texas, all these cities within the Dallas area, within the Dallas Metroplex, every city's got their own requirements and needs and wants, and so that's why we have to be flexible, and we are. There's certain colors they like, and some of them maybe it's in a historic downtown area that's we need to be sure. And for those, I'm just trying to be sure that not to take for granted that everybody listening knows what small cell is, but typically, yes, it is the poles, whether they're light poles or power poles or wooden. Some of them are wooden, some of them are metal. But they are typically 25, 35 feet tall.
Mm-hmm.
And they're so unnoticeable, and typically in denser areas. So if you've got let's say you've got speaking of Arlington, I mentioned Arlington. There's this stadium that some people may have heard of called AT&T Stadium, where the Dallas Cowboys play, and and so you can imagine how busy that parking lot can get.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
so small cell is real important in dense areas in Arlington, where you've got the Texas Rangers and the Dallas Cowboys right in the same area. How busy can that parking lot even get? Not let alone the stadium. Once you walk inside that stadium, now you're on the distributed antenna system, the DAS.
Yep.
So you've got a neutral host DAS where all these different carriers are connected into that DAS, and whether it's Verizon or AT&T or T-Mobile or the others, and that are soon to happen, right? Some of those are soon to be, but when it comes to small cell, for sure, Valmont, we've got the mounts as well. So not just the poles, but the mounts and all sorts of needs that are up top to conceal or install, and there's a lot of decorative options and accessories, and it's pretty exciting.
Well,
so towers come in all shapes and sizes, and traditionally the towers we think of as really tall, but the small cell poles can be just 25, 35 feet, but those operate just like a tower. They are transmitting, and they do connect, and multiple small cells can share the same fiber circuit, and it gets into that. But yeah,
I mean, I was just getting ready to say, from the booms that go up, or like we were talking about the sector frames, and then the pipe mounts and all that, and then you start to think about all the different size H frames that are out there that hold all this cabinetry and all that. I mean, that's prefab stuff. Y'all sell it right out. Oh, you need an H frame? No problem. We got that right here. We'll get that out to you.
H frame kits are, it's simple, but it's so convenient for the customer to just say,
yep,
I need an H frame kit that uses burial pipe, meaning it's going to be buried in the ground, and I need to attach to my concrete pad.
Yeah.
Or conveniently be installed to the equipment platform where the radio cabinet rests, and it's Unistrut, it's U-bolt kits, it's 3.5-inch outside diameter pipe. We throw in a couple of pipe caps, those pipe caps, and Unistrut caps on those plastic ones that just so you don't rub across the ends of it, and but very convenient for making everything nice and tidy at the site, as we know in the construction. But speaking of the equipment platforms, a lot of that's something that's very popular, because the concrete pads, many of us that have been in construction before in the wireless industry, the concrete pads are common. But that concrete can and does crack over time, and those equipment platforms can be more of an investment, but in the long term, they are rather convenient, and there's rails to make them safe. There's steps, ramps, and that's something we provide and offer, and the popular question I get is on the feet. Those equipment platforms, there's modular jacks where you can. It actually has a hand crank where you can level the platform, or you can. There's small foot pads and large foot pads that don't have the hand crank for maybe lightweight radio cabinets, but many of these big wireless carriers, like, they need the heavy duty platforms and cranks that'll support all that weight, because these radio cabinets maybe have a lot of batteries in them. A battery cabinet alone might be 1,000 pounds of just batteries, right? And that's a lot of weight that needs to be properly supported.
So were you really, and I don't want to sound like a Walmart or anything, or an Amazon or anything like that, but that's basically, but in all reality, Brian, where you really get into it, and not trying to make you a big bunch of money, but where you give value added is when, if you really knew every tower or every situation that the carrier was getting involved in, and they let you in on the front end, and they said, hey, we're thinking about installing on a church steeple, or we're thinking about doing this at this. More than likely, when you guys get in on the front end, how much time and money do you think you could save other people just by cause of your expertise and all the other things? Because it sounds to me like you rather get in there, the stuff you're loving to work on based upon your experience and how you're winning your sales and knocking it out of the park, is basically kind of a frame to suit or something. Oh, you need to do this for this type building, and it's never had wireless, and they don't want it to show. Well, let's go down this route. I get some Larson stuff over here. We'll blend this into the project. So you're tapping your other departments, trying to come up with this creative, non-aesthetic design that's low cost but still of an investment, for long-term serving. And it may sound corny, but I mean, you may say to somebody, you go call on a customer, whether it be Verizon, T-Mobile, AT&T. We want to make sure we do get all three of you guys, and Dish. Charlie, I don't want you calling me here in 10 minutes, beat me up. But when you're selling products and services, you see exactly what I'm saying. You want to try to sell more to them, but you don't want to be, but they can get it cheaper. But really, it's the experience. And that sounds corny, but how much money could you, when you look in the rear view mirror, Brian, and someone calls you and says, Brian, we can't do X or we can't do Y, and you said, well, if you'd have called me, man, I could have helped you. How many times has that happened?
We always get that, and I like to share this. We've got this team. I'm lucky to be part of this team. I've got 24 years in this industry. It's different roles within telecom. It's not all with the same company, but I'll say this: my 24 is nothing compared to some of the people I work with. We've got this team of experience, whether it's regional sales managers, sales directors, GM, all of the above, engineering. And when you add up those years of experience, so if someone calls me and says, hey, Brian, I am in New Orleans, Louisiana, and I've got this unique situation that's a one-off, right?
Yes.
What we've got is this strength where I can go, hey, I know that's been done before in Phoenix, Arizona.
Yes.
Because my coworker has come across that before. We have team meetings. We often talk. We share information. And so I can say, hey, I know this is unique to New Orleans, Louisiana, but in Phoenix, Arizona, they had a similar need at a venue at this Arizona State University in Tempe or something. And I can say, look, this is what we've got to present. And then they go, oh, man, thank you so much.
Right.
Boom. That's a home run, and then I can provide them with a quote with exactly what they need, and then so it saves so much time, even weeks, and the more time, days, weeks we can shave off their project, the more their customer can be satisfied and pleased, and and if it's a carrier, they're getting to exceed their goals, they're getting to get their projects completed ahead of time. Everybody's happy.
Well, and it sounds cornball, but let's say you got somebody that becomes what we call a new rooftop renter, and you're going to be the third-party company that actually handles it. It would actually, like I said, instead of having gypsy mounts and a mount from this company and a mount from this company, it would almost be better and more time consuming to say, sir, I'm sorry, but there's going to be a couple of things that you're going to have to do so that if I'm the third party actually managing the rooftop, it would almost just be advisable to say, look, we're going to involve our third party vendor, Site Pro, and the reason why is they're going to go up there and take a little, some pictures of what you're trying to do, and then they're going to draw up a plan, and they're going to stick me with a figure, and just because we're using them, then my rooftop don't look like, an improper install with coax laying out on top of the ground or whatever the case may be, and no ice bridge. And why are you running 60 feet of ice bridge when you don't need to do that? You could have put it and channeled it right up against
Right.
this. Just so many different. Go ahead.
And saving, what I love to do too is, and some are going to be surprised to hear this because I am in sales now. But it's fun to save the customer money off
Absolutely.
the expenses that
Absolutely.
they've got. There's nothing more. There's something satisfying about when a customer says, "Hey, I need a 24-inch ice bridge kit," and I'm like, "Wait a second, how many runs of coax are you needing to cover?" For those that don't know what ice bridge kits are, they protect the cable, the coax cable underneath, because those antennas up above do get ice, and when that icicle falls from 300 feet up, it can and does cause damage to the cable below. But an ice bridge kit, I see this all the time where people are asking for 24-inch wide ice bridge kit or triple T trapeze kits and that supports 24 lines of coax. And hey, man, if you're only supporting 6 lines, or maybe you can get by with a 12-inch wide ice bridge kit. Maybe that can shave $60 off your sites.
Yeah.
But if you have 30, what if you have 30 sites and we're saving you $60?
Absolutely.
But a rooftop, you mentioned rooftop. We have all sorts of rooftop mounts and cable tray and sleepers and rubber rooftop supports, and that's an area where I found, because most sites are not on roofs.
Exactly.
So it's not as. And accessing a roof is not something that's easy either, because a lot of these buildings don't allow just anybody on their roof for safety purposes. And so that's another area where we can really not only just save the customer money as far as reducing and making sure they're only purchasing what they need, but identifying their need and making sure, hey, did you consider that you're going to need rubber mats so that you can place those cinder blocks on top? And, oh, man, I totally forgot about rubber mats, and thank you so much, because if we wouldn't have bought the rubber mats, we would have needed them. And so it's just the non-penetrating roof mounts. Nothing makes a rooftop owner or whoever manages that roof more happy than if you can provide a mount that doesn't penetrate into the roof. Because if you have to install that mount into a roof, now you're talking about the possibility of water intrusion and any other problems. And so we've got a lot of mounts that they're not just penetrating, but hey, we've got non-penetrating mounts that can withstand the loading. And if any customer needs further specifics, whether it's spec sheets or assembly drawings or engineering letters, our engineering team can provide those, and they are very informative, and it puts people at ease and provides that level of confidence you need when you're going to install antennas onto a roof. If you're responsible for that, that's you want to buy from a supplier that is reliable and dependable and has that long withstanding reputation and many years in the industry. It's decades of experience, right?
Absolutely. And you were just talking about it, all those different types of mounts, but here I am just thinking, if you're not there to make sure and you're managing XYZ hotel and they want to lease their rooftop and you're the one managing whoever it is installing and they're trying to keep costs down. It's people need to understand we're not out to gouge anybody or to create a sale. We don't have to create sales. That's not something the wireless industry does. In other words, we don't sit around and just try to devise ways to snake the customer or to create money. That's not the way this industry was founded. That's not the way this industry's done. The way it is done and everything is it's just like what you're talking about. Sometimes you got to do things where you do have to spend money, and we got to do it the right way in order to be successful and protect all parties. Then there's other times we don't need all this over excess to build this site or to do this what you're trying to do, and therefore we can do that at a less expensive. But just like having like people don't understand. Well, there's hurricanes that come on. Well, where do people like to put antennas? Well, all over in Florida, right on top of condominiums and other buildings like that. Well, you better have some type of sled because when the wind picks up and that big, I don't think people understand, but most of those antennas are 8 foot long with a wingspan. That wind gets to picking up. It'll take that mount and that sled and that whole apparatus and sling it in the air.
Yes, and to be so complimentary and respectful of the tower climbers. I just to put a plug in for the men and women who climb the towers, who access those rooftops, who work at night, who have very dangerous roles.
Oh my
and
gosh.
Positions and jobs. If it wasn't for these people, we would not be talking right now. And I just want to put a plug in for all tower climbers.
I love all my construction people. Yeah, everybody out there that you and I have the pleasure of talking on the phone and, like you say, selling the products. We love to be in the field. But those people that actually are operating those cranes and flying your mount up in the air with all that gear on it, and all those people that, like you said, work in the window time to let us go do what we want to do. There's an army of people behind us, working the curtain, making sure all this junk happens. But those are the relationship, and they're doing what they enjoy doing. I love now because, now when you do so many sites, the crews are all different than they have been in the past. Everything's much more different than it was. Why? Because we know more. We didn't know as much when we were first doing this. I mean, John was talking about it. And so a lot of it, like you said, we had that great opportunity to slowly learn. Like when you said you were at Southwestern Bell, or you were at Cricket, and you went out to a site, you slowly got to learn as it went. And it wasn't as, I guess, the hill wasn't as steep because you get around people and people say, you guys all talk a different language in the telco industry. Well, we learned it slow. It's not like we learned that dictionary or all those acronyms. We learned that as we went.
I have a funny story on that. I went, for those that know Pulaski Technical College in the Little Rock area, I was, my degree from the University of Arkansas at Little Rock is business management, right? So all of a sudden, I found myself in a field tech or more of a technical role. Well, I went to school and I got a business management degree, right? It has nothing to do with, but so I knew I had a lot of learning to do. I went and bought a textbook, Pulaski Technical College, that was all about learning about Ohm's law and what is, how electricity works and telephony. A lot about telephony I did not know and appreciate, or did not yet appreciate, and I had a lot to learn. And just asking a lot of questions. But you're right. Like sometimes people go, man, back in the day when Southwestern Bell was hiring people, they were just needing people that were willing to work, because there was no, hey, how many years of wireless experience do you have? Well, hey, if it's new, if wireless is new, and there's no one had that. And so now, of course, people, when people are looking for positions, they might look for someone that's got 10 plus years in the wireless industry. Well, back in of course, before my time, there was many people that started in the 80s and early 90s before I was around that I would learn from. But yeah, well, it's kind of remind. I will say that I almost want to, if the work ethic of so many, I think mine came from throwing a paper out, and we used, now I don't think anybody throws a paper out anymore because hardly anybody subscribes to the newspaper anymore. But when I was about 11, 12, 13, 14, those years, I woke up every day, 365 days a year, about 4:30 a.m. to throw a paper out for the Arkansas Democrat, and then later the Arkansas Gazette, and then now that paper's won. It's the Arkansas Democrat Gazette. But that experience taught me that if I don't wake up at 4 a.m, about 100 people don't get their newspaper that day. And back at that time, that would have been about 1987.
Ooh, you talking about in the information?
If you didn't get your newspaper in 1987, it was the end of the world. People would complain and be really upset. So it taught me responsibility, accountability. That if I didn't wake up 365 days a year for those 3 or 4 years, I had a paper out.
Well,
but
and
now fast forward, we have our own territories or responsibilities or which is like a paper route, but now I've got a territory within my sales region that I manage, and so those customers, those people rely on me to be available. Sometimes it does require me to be available after hours. I am off today. Today is Good Friday. I'm happy, by the way, to be celebrating Easter. I want to put a plug in for Easter. Thankful for that. Blessed. I feel blessed, and I'm thankful for to celebrate and especially Easter Sunday. But the territory requires today, for example, how many people have reached out today needing something? They needed a quote revised so that they could then send that revised quote back to their customer to get approval so that they can get the purchase order. And that just allows them to get their material that much quicker. I'm not the only one doing this. There's a lot of people in our industry that do work on their days off, but it's just those little things. There's probably been 15 examples today where I've either had phone calls or emails of people needing something, and I could have not answered. I could have not responded. But I chose to so that they could get what they needed. And then all it does is it means that they're going to get their material or they'll get their purchase order approved or whatever the case a day or two sooner. I could have waited till Monday, and that would have been totally fine. But that's the extra things that I like to do, we like to do, and it just helps everything go in motion.
Yeah,
and look at Stork. Look at Stork working on a Friday afternoon as well.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. But you were talking about but it hasn't been long ago. We've had a quick run, and we talk about Plano telephone service or POTS, and then the development of cellular, and as it grew and everything. But it wasn't long ago that 95 and 96 is really when commercial internet started to become basically available. Everybody was getting these diskettes in the mail from American Online. Join up and use that service and,
right.
and whatnot. But, we were talking about it even through the first years of cellular. To have variety, the content we have on our smartphones now, we can pull up anything, any newspaper, anything, maps, all that stuff. A lot of the devices that we used to use or used to get or pay for as a service or anything is now almost commodity free, and if not, or a portion of it, or you can get it, or I don't need that. But even just thinking about, there for a short period of time. If you did not subscribe to the Courier-Journal or to the Lexington Herald-Leader and you lived in the state of Kentucky, you would actually go to the library and read that newspaper, because that would be the only way you could get certain news and information other than watching television. But that wasn't long ago, and I don't want to sound old, but we have so much information now, it's hard to separate, and a lot of it isn't regulated, whereas almost all of it was, unless it was just in some basic trade magazine, and you pay somebody some money and then they pimp your article or they pimp you. And John was in Wireless Week, and he's a great he's got this great computer software or whatever, or he knows how to do whatever. But it wasn't that long ago that we thought, now everything's so instantaneous, and now even the invention of LinkedIn, we all use it. I use it. Everybody uses it. But now it's hard to figure out, and it's moving so fast that if you don't grab a hold, or you don't try to get into something, or you don't have relationships, and you don't try to spread out and talk to certain people or have something going on, it makes it a little rough, doesn't it, Brian? I mean, you can only ride on experience so long.
Great points. All valid and it's true. You've got to be able to have there's nothing like having that real experience, the real conversations, not just conversations, but truly, and that the most learning comes from the struggles. I love this. I love the symbolism that comes from just working out with weights. No one gets stronger when you work out with weights. What helps you get stronger is that resistance. But when your muscles are sore, when you're tired, it's when you're consistent and push through, that's when you grow. And just like that in all of our industries, no matter what we're in, whether it's medical or telecommunications or legal or all the different roles out there, it's the struggles, it's those hard times, those challenging times, those times where, and all of us have been there. I'm just using personal experiences, but those times where I might have put in a 14-hour day. Not all the time, but there might have been a long 14, 15-hour day where back when I was working in the field and I was a field tech and I was out at a site, there was times where I would be on call and I'd be dispatched to a cell site where it was off the air and nothing I did worked. And then I get tired, or I get hungry, it's cold, it's snowing, it's 110 degrees, it's whatever the case. It's maybe I didn't plan ahead. I don't have an umbrella or sunblock and I'm getting burned, or I'm cold. My fingers, I can barely feel my fingers because it's so cold out here. It's those times where, and then you've got to lean on your team. You've got to ask for help, be willing to ask for help. But that builds character, but it also builds experience to where we all appreciate the good days when things do go smooth and we're riding the wave. But when you talk about information, it's true. I think one thing that I'd like to share is we just really all need, including myself, to read and be knowledgeable and be careful that we're not just reading the first two sentences of something. We live in this world where all of us we're being fed so much information that we have a tendency, we just want to thumb through it and read the first sentence, and then we assume that it's written by this person or it comes from this source so that it's true and valid. We need to think for ourselves. We need to be independent and gather information from multiple sources so that we're intelligent, can speak intelligent on the subject, and not rely and be dependent on others for that information. I think that's something that we should instruct others who are new to our industry, whatever that is, or whether it's in an educational situation, younger people that are maybe in entering college or still in school, maybe they're in high school or junior high school, to not just rely and depend on what they're being told. They need to gather that information themselves so they can articulate that conversation using their own head. And let's just say this, using common sense. I think common sense is something our grandparents would always teach us and taught us, and that is becoming a lost art in our day and time. So I think if we could, if there's one thing that maybe even just one person listening may share with others, and let's just come back to a world where we use common sense.
And in our industry, it looks like we're going real fast, but a lot of times we're not. It may look like the business is moving and that we're really, but we're not. And the only reason why it looks that way is we've got a lot of, you have KPIs, and everybody's got something they got to hit by the end of the year, or a goal or an objective. And you've got a 30-day goal, you got a 60-day goal, a 90-day. I'm always trying to measure myself. Why? Because you want to get better. Why? Because if not, that's the only way you grow, or you got to get better. But it's just part of it, and pushing yourself. You were just talking about that resistance. Sometimes, it is tough. You got to slow down and try to, consume it all. But when you've got, like you said, so many sites or so many deals or so many things going, it's hard because you have this big pressure on you to perform and execute regardless of whatever it is out there. And I'm sure you guys, your superiors have the gun pointed at your head. Are you the only one in components, or is there a counterpart in the West? Are you the only one in it, Brian, or at Valmont, or is there several?
Great question. We have a team, and we cover the United States with different territories. So there's a Southwest regional sales manager for Site Pro One. There's one in the Northwest, Northeast, Southeast, South Central, Midwest. So we've got all the territories within the area covered, and we do divide it up by states, and that way, there's a real boundary line, but we work as a team, and there's a lot of national accounts. There's a lot of companies that obviously don't just have offices in Louisiana, Arkansas, Oklahoma, Kansas, Missouri type states where I'm typically involved with, but there's national companies that have offices all over the country, so we all split resources, and we're all visiting and building relationships and consistently reaching out to those customers so that we can fully service and support and be sure we're ahead, and we learn and know about their needs and what they're coming up with, and we can share, hey, Mr. So-and-so or Mrs. So-and-so, we've got a new product that we just came out with, or that's a perfect match for that. Or, hey, you know what? We may consider bringing this into stock or because of this need, and so there's learning. There is something to be said. You hit it on the nail about these. Most people in the industry, when it comes to material, they know what they need. They already know what they need.
Yes.
But they need a supplier. They need a supplier that can respond fast to that need, stock the material in a warehouse close to where they need it.
Mm-hmm.
And then if, let's just say, something goes wrong, most of the time, by far, the majority of orders are smooth and everything goes. But what if something goes wrong, where maybe the truck company that delivers that shipment, maybe they arrive later than scheduled, or something gets damaged? You want a supplier or a contact at that company that will be with you through thick and thin. So if something goes wrong, we can resolve it, and that's been where we can really show our true colors, is help that customer get that remedy resolved. or remedy the situation and get what went wrong right, so that they can not miss a beat. And maybe we need to overnight something. Maybe we need to. This has happened a lot, where warehouse employees, not that they have to do this, but sometimes they're willing to. They might, on their way home after work, go by that UPS.
Oh, yes, I hope so.
And drop off a UPS box, because UPS has already come and gone from our local warehouse. Well, what if we can drop it off before the last pickup at the UPS office? And that way it gets out the door. And that it might be a little box with a little component in it, but that one component may be just what's holding up a project.
A turnip, a turnip of a cell site, and you mentioned that. But what I guess, I've always sold tower space in the South, or hustled things and products and services in the South, and the way wireless rolls is, and for those that are just watching and tuning in here to the show, and lines are open, you can call in. But it's 615-560-9299. But one of the things I really loved or I hated was when something would start in wireless. If you kind of look at the United States, the South has no gigantic metropolitan. I mean, you've got Orlando, Miami, and Atlanta. That's it. The rest of it is just good old Southern people, and that's from the Carolinas all the way across. But like the East, so you'd have D.C. going, you've got New York going, and we'd all just be, down here eating bologna and crackers. And man, the projects would start rolling in those major metropolitan cities. Of course, Dallas would kick in, Denver would go, Los Angeles, San Diego, but you just didn't have that great big giant metropolitan cities like New York and Chicago and other cities like that. But then finally, once we did roll, we had just as many sites because of the sprawl effect of the amount of geographical area we're trying to cover.
Right. I remember that would happen is the major hubs would set the tone, and then before you know it, the Shreveports and the Memphises and the Birminghams and the Little Rock, Tulsa, Oklahoma City, so on and so forth would blossom. And it does, when you're with a carrier, it does seem like the big dogs would always get, they're always first, right? But what's exciting, I'll tell you, it's really been amazing, and everybody's got one of these stories where you are nowadays. You are in a rural area. You're visiting, a relative, or you're at a state park, and you look at your service and you're like, "Whoa! I've got 5 bars. I'm doing fast speeds, and it's coming. It's already happening. There's still a lot to go, and there's
we got a lot. Yeah, we've got a lot of work to do.
That's coming, but it's impressive what you can get and do in rural America even today, and it's only getting better. But that's exciting.
Yeah, and just to rebound off that, it's how far we've come and the excitement part. But yeah, it used to be, we're going to roll Nashville, and then it would be Nashville and Memphis would roll first, and then they'd say the tier 2 will be Knoxville, Chattanooga, and then the other cities would blend in, and then it was all we wrote. You mentioned cricket, so to tell you how close I was to the cricket, the whole deal of cricket. Do you know where cricket started? Cricket started in Chattanooga, Tennessee.
San Diego.
No.
Oh, that's right. You're right. It did.
No.
I was thinking
Harry Hudson.
Yes.
By gosh, walked out on GT Wireless. I was there, brother. I was right there at 3100. I was right there at 624 Grasmere. We was all down there. So
that's right.
We were
thinking Leap Communication.
No, it's Chasetail.
Was
2 men in a tower.
Company out of San Diego. But
they changed the name to Cricket, but it was first Chasetail, and I remember. Dude, I was the indirect manager here in Nashville, and I had some great agents just chucking out wireless telephones. And of course, we were selling Code Division Multiple Access Digital Network Cellular Service.
CDMA.
Yes, yes, and you guys were the PCS service. And of course, we didn't know who Cricket was, but it was listed because Chasetel is who the license was listed under by the FCC. It was listed as Chasetel Communications. And of course, they have bought 10 megahertz all over. And a lot of people, and I was on the other side, on the marketing side, hustling car phones at the time. And I can remember when they came to the back of me and they said, Harry Hudson has left. He's going to Chattanooga. They're starting a network, and it's going to be all you can eat. And they fired it up, and it was about 4 towers is all they had, and they were selling it down in Chattanooga. We knew about it. It was all throughout, I mean, I'm sure Bell South Mobility was freaking out. GT Wireless was just about to lose their mind because it was down the road in Chattanooga. And then they started as in Towers. Larry Wells was in on it. Pat Tent, Janet Gill, they were all in on it. They were building a bunch of them down there helping Cricket during this whole deal. And I was on the marketing side, doing all this. And all of a sudden, and then a bunch of us got together. And I remember we went over to 3100 West End Avenue, and we wanted to sit down with Rick Gall. And we were coming up with a way with, well, by gosh, if they can do it, we can too. But let's go all you can eat, for a certain price, but just do it for local telephone calls. What Rick said,
right.
and we didn't know what the profit end was behind the scenes. I mean, we had no idea that, man, you just make bankroll, dude, off local. You don't sell the golden cow. I mean, all that long distance and all that, we have to pay that, and, we buy that, and then we have to bill it back out. That's all a pain. That costs money. Even though you make money, even though you make money off people roaming on your network, and you sell the network and in collect, out collect cost, and the average of, that's the reason why the little companies, some of them still survive. They are either in a gap point or a pinch point. I mean, just till recently, Verizon bought Bluegrass Wireless, but Joe Tobin, who owned that market right there, those 34 counties that he owned right there in the middle of Kentucky, he choked Verizon forever because, Verizon owned it, and so, for a long time between Louisville and Lexington, and then they owned this little spot over here in Paducah, but there was this big gap. And like for 120 some few miles, it was owned by Bluegrass, and and of course now they own it. But a lot of little companies. People don't realize how many little wireless companies there are. You don't not only sell to the big four, but there's companies like C Spire, and you sell to Jerry Skipper and people like that, and Steve Garrett down there in Madison, Mississippi, and they got 5-6 million customers on their network. And then there's U.S. Cellular, and there's other carriers. We always mention the big four because that's the most everybody talks about. But there is a lot of Pioneer, like I said, Pioneer. There's a lot of other little companies in there.
Pioneer and Kingfisher, Pine Telephone in Broken Bow, Oklahoma. You got
that's where Reggie Redwine works.
Panhandle Telecommunications in Guyman, Oklahoma. There's many, and you've mentioned rural carriers. These you're right. It's the large carriers definitely get most of the attention, and but yeah, there used to be a time where wherever metropolitan area someone lived in, you might have had 7 or 8 choices on who you could go, and these weren't MVNOs, the resellers. These were actual licensed companies that were providing service and had their own cell towers, their own licensed signal. Now it's really just 3 or 4 in any given area, but of course there's a lot of other companies, but people don't realize they're still using T-Mobile towers or AT&T towers. They're just using it through a reseller. But yeah, it's really expanded over time.
Well,
Boy, did Cricket appeal to a niche market, and and Metro PCS and some of these others where there was a certain market within each area that just wasn't getting served, and it exploded. People are willing to just pay for their bill every month and prepaid. There is a certain percentage of people that they're not able to pass a credit check to get a cell phone and sign a contract, so therefore they're Cricket and Metro PCS and those types of companies were and are very appealing to those customers, and there's many other reasons why they prepaid is
you was talking about certain things. I mean, the funny thing about our industry, if it didn't teach you anything else as a salesperson and those that were good at it, it was just what you said. You had to get your elevator speech because you did work, what you said, customer care. But having that elevator speech to be able to say, yes, sir, I've got that consumer plan, and that'll run you $34.95 a month. That's got 30 minutes involved. If you go over the 30 minutes, it's going to be 25 cents a minute. And then that doesn't include your roaming and long distance, but that's 30. And then unlimited nights and weekends. You'd hook that on there for $14.95, so they could talk they could talk from 5 o'clock on Friday to 8 a.m. Monday morning. They could talk, and then and then there was, I'll never forget. I did not know this, but when you got on the borders of certain areas, because certain people worked there and everything, they would actually create an MPA NXX and then click it to where if that phone went over there, it didn't have that MPA NXX, it didn't have long distance, but all the other ones did. And so, somebody would say, oh, I need a 615-312 number. Why? Because it's been triggered only a certain way, only for certain customers that went or worked a certain area. And so they just created that because they used their phone, or the kids would take it and they'd have a 6-1, it had the unlimited nights and weekends, and it was the same company. I mean, there was a lot of that going on back then, wasn't there? I mean, there was people using it for to communicate with their kids.
And people were able to figure out and how to beat the system and really truly take advantage of what they had. And I remember feeling just, man, like I was really helping so much when I was in that customer service role, and working in a call center in Little Rock, Arkansas in 1996 or something, 1997, 1998, those years where the average wireless customer at that time truly was a rookie. We were all rookies. We were all walking around with bag phones or cell phones, and we didn't know what to do. And so people of all ages, whether you were 18 or 28 or 38 or 48 or 68, we were all new with these wireless phones, and they needed people. You truly felt like you were helping people. And this is funny. Everybody's going to laugh at this, but we know, speaking of like 25 minutes a month, I mean, people got 25 minutes a month, and anything over that would just increase your bill if it was, like Monday through Friday. So if you called somebody and it was the wrong number. Sorry. Like, oh man, you just wasted one of my minutes, man.
Yeah.
Hang up real quick, and if you called somebody and they answered, and you, oh, I'm sorry, wrong number. Oh, because it wasted my minute, but it also hurt their minute on the receiving end. So both of us, that person's like, oh man, you just messed up one of my minutes. Now I only got 29 left.
Well, and when you first started selling, I mean, listen, they wanted their salespeople. I mean, it was like a drug. They wanted us using that telephone, and they wanted us using it everywhere, and they wanted us whipping that sucker out. And, back then you dressed up in a 3-piece suit, went out and sold car phones every day. And I had a
Yeah.
Lincoln. I had a Lincoln Town Car. Rode around in it. I could run credit on one phone, and I'd call activations on. I'd call Lightbridge. How you doing? What's your dealer code? 37130. He said, how many we gonna turn on? What's the social? What's the date of birth? How many lines you need? I said, it's approved. 2 lines is in B, is in Bravo. Go ahead. And then you'd say, honey, I got them ready. You guys, if you want to, let's turn these 2 on. I got some ESNs. Let's load them. And you'd say,
We would. I would offer a customer. I'd say, hey, if you want voicemail, we now have a feature where you can add voicemail, and that's oh, hey, well, how much is that? Oh, that's $2 a month. And oh man, I want voicemail. Yes, I want people to be able to leave me a message on my cell phone, and or caller ID. When caller ID first came out, I mean, that was something that was just so wow.
Man.
So I can tell who's calling me. And now I don't have to just answer it blindly without knowing who's calling me. It's just amazing how and really not that long. It hasn't been that long to where we are today. We've really come so far.
Well, you was talking about that, but and I mean, I used to, and I don't know more because I just like to. I try to focus what little I can, but I do like to focus on the customer more so than ever. But I can remember when, man, I used to fire out a 3-way because why? What would you do? Because if you were working with a customer, you may not be the one that could control their billing or to do something to help that customer, so you had to have somebody else. So you just say, well, you just hold on just a minute and I'll get Maggie May on the phone and we'll solve this right now. Maggie May.
Right now.
Yeah, right now. No, I mean,
back in the day, you could not afford to wait. If
no.
You waited and just
right now.
3-way was a way to get that decision or deal done now.
And it was just a feature, really. I mean, okay, and then you wondered how you lived without call waiting in the beginning. But see now, when's the last time you used call waiting? When you were on the phone, and I mean, and it's like, and you had them coming in all the time. Well, you don't, because you use all the other features of the phone. I mean, when texting first come out, texting a little bit came like email. In the beginning, I mean, we had email in 95, 96, 97, 98, in the early days of internet. People didn't use it. They didn't use it that much. They rather use shit. I mean, it was, they were kind of scared of email. And then it just got to be, man, I'll never forget when they started opening up the pipes and you could send a NEPA and a phase 1 and all that through the pipes, and you didn't have to walk over and get a FedEx box or a UPS box, print all that due diligence, get it all into a big folder and send it off, because if somebody said, well, we're interested in all 80 sites, you'd be like, holy cow. So you'd stay up and, sometimes a NEPA and a phase 1's 250 pages. And you sit there and just watch that copy.
Right.
Shit. I mean, the copy dude was at the Crown office like daily. I mean, like he just like had a cube in there, and we had a fax service guy. That had to come over and work on the fax machine. Why? Because when it got to be where you could really, faxing became really, really, and people started saying, okay, I'll accept a fax signature from them. Oh, that was like golden. That meant NTP, proceed, sale done. A fax is just as good as signing it, and then, and then look at the advantages of DocuSign. You talk about some people that have made their quota and have made a bunch of money because of a company called DocuSign. Why? Because when it is like inventing blacktop. It is like inventing the cellular telephone. DocuSign, it pays people. Why? Because it's a system that lets, when you click it, it's just like saying sold, done deal, I'm in, all that good stuff.
Game changer. It's even realtors, so many people in so many professions. It's a game changer for all, because in the old days, let's say you purchased a home, and you got to sign a contract. Well, what if it's a joint purchase and you need a spouse signature, and but boy, DocuSign, just the time it saved, the ability to close and fully execute an agreement days, weeks ahead of time without having to mail overnight, FedEx it to get it into somebody's hands. And it's just good. It's good for us I think it's healthy. And that's why I think people appreciate, Stork, your show, your call, what you're doing, the service you're doing to this industry. It's helping us all talk about it, but also appreciate where we've come. And then you've mentioned relationships many times, and thank you. You know what? Just to say thank you, Storks, for what you are doing for our industry. It's really impressive, and I know I'm appreciative that you've got this show going, and many people feel the same way.
Well, and I tell you what, I love it. I've been a broadcaster. I do a Friday Night Lights, and I have another blog that goes off during the season, which is much more geared toward the kids, and of course got Top of the Tower and stuff. But no, this whole thing, this whole operation, it's about using my degree. I was on the radio, had to do my drive in college. I have some of my Elizabeth Hanson is friends with me on Facebook. She was my journalism instructor. She still sees me. I know, Elizabeth, I still write terrible. You still see all those English mistakes I'll never get them all corrected. But I'm still trying to do what we went to school and wanted to do and learn. And it's a lot about doing what you want to do, but it's also like I feel like there are people out there. They have something they want to say, or they just like you. I'm so glad you wanted to be on the show, because so many times, I order, or I need cellular towers or steel in the air, whatever the case may be. And with that being said, you just don't think about all the other pieces and parts that are available that's made out of that's made out of steel, and so why not sell those pieces and parts? It just adds to your business, and you would be silly not to. So it's just more and more of the same stuff. Like you said, the camouflage business, huge business. I built 14 towers last year, and 3 of them were monopines, and they're not cheap. And they've got and there's certain different types, and there's bell towers. What is some of the creative getting into that? What not to dip over into the other department, but as we get ready to close up, as we've been on the air almost 2 hours, but what are some of the different structures are they coming out with? Like, can you get a lighthouse? Is there a catalog I can go through? And would you like the flagpole design with a 3 carrier? Or or is it all mostly, or is it, I know I've seen the clock towers and everything, but is this business, getting more?
I think what I can do to answer your question is, how about I just name about 12, maybe the top 12 examples of where customers often use camouflage. So you already mentioned a monopine. So there's all sorts of, there's cypress trees. There's material that Valmont Larson produces that looks like palm trees, eucalyptus trees, magnolia trees, elm trees, of course the pine trees. Then there's the buildings that maybe there's chimneys, smokestacks, clocks, steeples, that kind of thing. Let's not forget the cactus.
Yes.
In Arizona, that is a huge, very popular situation, because in a state like Arizona, where you've got wide open terrain, and if you just put a big ugly tower right there, it just takes away from it. No, you're driving.
Takes away from the beauty of the sand, and
you're trying to go to Wally World, and you don't want to see that in the landscape. So, but then there's flagpoles, and maybe just to name one more, grain silos.
Yeah.
There's that kind of when in Nebraska, in Iowa, there's situations where you just, what if they don't want it to distract and take away from the farm atmosphere, the look. And so that's not all customers have needs for camouflage or, but for those that either want or need it, it's just, isn't it wonderful that there's companies like Valmont Larson that are out there to provide that service for those types of customers to say, hey, you can get, in some cases, it may be what they need to get approved to have that site in the first place.
Absolutely.
Maybe they wouldn't get it. And so then it benefits everybody. So then let's say it's a really fun, popular area like for Mardi Gras in New Orleans, an area to cover downtown New Orleans and some of that district. If the city of New Orleans will only approve it if it's something that's hidden, and then that benefits everybody. If they can get it approved, then now people, when they need their cell phone to work, what if, hey, you might need to call an Uber or a Lyft or get a taxi driver to take you back to your hotel safely, and that there's so many scenarios where thankfully people have coverage when they need it. And we all play a role in, helping it happen.
Brian, we did not take one phone call, but I can't thank you enough for riding with me. It's been a great Friday afternoon. I have no idea if anybody was watching, and I really don't care because I enjoyed you. I felt like brought a lot to the table. You taught us a lot and a lot about what's going on. And, I mean, you're going to be busy the rest of the year. And so if you have a need or anything, please, Brian, I know he's out there on LinkedIn and just feel wing like he said, batting like a bat has or whatnot. But get in touch with him. IM him. Reach out to him. Become his hook up with him on LinkedIn. And we just can't thank you enough for being on the show, Brian.
Stork Montgomery, thank you so much. I enjoyed it. This was a lot of fun, and I sure it would be. I'd be amiss if I didn't mention that today is Good Friday. I'm thankful for Easter and what it brings, and for those that do believe or they don't believe, it doesn't matter. What Easter means is it's a time for us to all just make changes, look within, be renewed, and I hope everyone has a happy and blessed Easter. And thank you so much for having me on your show, sir. I enjoyed it a lot.
All righty. Kids, we'll be coming back. I don't know when. Maybe it'll be 2 weeks. Maybe it'll be 3 weeks. I don't know. But we'll be back real soon with episode 4 of Man It Truly Delivers. And if you'd like to be on the show, instant message me. Or we'd have loved for you to call in. But either way, we'll be looking forward to seeing you. Until then, stay safe. And we will see you next time.